All right. Welcome to another episode of the Pinpoint Investor podcast with Faisal Morsi. I have my next guest, Patrick Menefee. I've known Pat probably for about a year or two now. Great guy. At all of our conversations, I always walk away with some kind of like gold nugget that I didn't know I had. And before we started here, he even gave me like a book that I'm going to dive into. So appreciate you being on, Patrick.
Yeah, man, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, of course. One thing that it's always actually I'll go with two things that's always like impressed me about you. One, you're so smart. And obviously, judging by the wall of books behind you, you're well read and you always you're always like a student of the game and trying to like expand your mind and horizons. And always just so humble about it too. And then second thing is you're always trying to like help people. And I respect that a lot. And I think not too long ago, you were doing something with the victims of the Hurricane Helene. Before we get into like, you and your story, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I appreciate the kind words. Going out, so I'll rewind a couple of years because it starts back when I moved to Charlotte and Hurricane Florence hit. Technically, it starts way before that, but I was in the Army, and in my time in the Army, I felt like I missed my opportunity to serve in the way that I could. I was an infantry officer, and by the time when I got into ROTC, I had a life of like I had a vision of it was 2007. It was right when the surge was happening. It was like the height of the Iraq War, and so that was the type of service that I saw. And by the time I commissioned, by the time I graduated infantry school, ranger school, airborne school, all that stuff, and got to my unit, the deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan were done, and we weren't doing those anymore. And so I felt like I missed that opportunity to serve in a lot of ways. And then there were a couple other little things that happened in my life where I felt like I missed that opportunity. And then back in 2018, I moved to Charlotte and Hurricane Florence came. And I wanted to help. I wanted to do something to help my community. Charlotte wasn't hit by it, besides some branches falling down. But I drove out to meet an Army buddy of mine in Raleigh, and we went and helped cut down some trees and stuff like that. Helped a little bit. But then I spent 2 more days driving around trying to work with an organization and was never able to actually do anything. I spent 2 days driving around all of North Carolina. And by the time I got to a place, they were good, or I got redirected somewhere else based on the group that I was with. And I was so frustrated because I couldn't, again, help people the way that I wanted to. So when Helene came through, I was looking for any way that I could help. And I'm a buddy of mine. Um, he talked about a group that he was with or a friend that he was going out to help. And so I asked how I could plug in. And I went out there and I spent 4 days out there and I helped them stand up their operations. I got to see a lot of the devastation and then got to help coordinate and make sure that all the time, like I didn't want the same thing to happen to me that happened to other people. And so I could be boots on the ground and I could go be muscle to try to help out, or I could use my mind a little bit more and I could try to use the experience that I had in the Army. And so I helped them build up their operations and make it more of a formalized thing that was structured and organized. And they were able to help a ton of people. I was able to see the crazy ends of the spectrum of like an infantryman far right coming together with a Asheville hippie that talks about their pronouns in the first sentence that they like these two people that couldn't be polar opposites any further. They get in a truck together and they go out because they've got the same mission to help people out. So it gave such a cool glimpse, despite all of the devastation that was horrendous. It was such a cool opportunity to see the real greatness of humanity. So I don't know if that was what you're trying to get at, but it was such a that was my biggest takeaway from it was just we see a lot of negative shit, and we see the bad often, but when you're out there with everybody and people have a higher purpose to work towards, none of that stuff matters, which is really 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 cool to see.
That is. Honestly, I don't know what I was trying to get out of that. I just I saw what you were doing and kind of wanted to like, ask you about it because I know we hadn't had a chance to talk about it. So what led you to joining the army to begin with? Was it just like, a lot of people kind of see it as like, all right, like after high school, like I don't really know like what path in life I want to take, or was it strictly out of like the intrinsic need of wanting to help others?
There were two things. One was the desire to be of service and the desire to help and to do something. And then the other one was I had a neighbor and my best friend that joined. He was a year and a half ahead of me, and I saw him enlist. And so I went back and forth between enlisting or going the officer route. And then a very teary-eyed conversation on the couch with my mom, with her begging me in 2006 not to enlist because she didn't want me to die. Um, she talked me into going the officer route. So I did ROTC in college that way.
Nice, that's smart. All right, so what are you doing now, and like, how did you get to where you are?
Ooh, uh, good one. So right now I am a mindset and success coach, and I am a community builder. So I I work very heavily with entrepreneurs, business owners who want to build a better life for themselves, who want to be successful in business. And I help them a lot of times redefine what that success means. And that's part of the reason that I've gotten there is because over the course of the past, that my entire adult life, whether it was the army, I got out of the army and I was in consulting for a little while in the corporate world. I got out of that and I was in real estate for 3, 4 years, 5 years, I don't remember, 3 or 4. Bought a business along the way, and now I've gotten into coaching. And I found in all of these different places that I was trying to build a business or I was trying to operate in, I would just adopt whatever success meant in that area. And so in the army, there was a certain version of success that was usually related to how much things sucked and how much you could push through the struggle and the suffer and all that kind of thing. In real estate, success means more deals, success means volume, success means all of the things that we think success means number of doors, all of those things. And so I started pushing on that and building a business that I really hated because I just felt like I needed to be doing more. And I think a lot of people do it in their career. I know a lot of people do it in their careers too. And people get so caught up in just doing the thing and they're rowing the boat and they never actually look up to think, A, should I even be in a damn boat, or should I be in a car? Should I be in some other vehicle? And then B, am I going in the right direction? And so now everything that I do some work one-on-one with clients, but a lot of the work that I do is heavily focused on the community side, where I bring together entrepreneurs and business owners who are seeking exactly what I just described, but also who a lot of times feel like they're on their own and they don't have a support system around them and they want to level up the people around them. They believe in the idea of the Jim Rohn quote, or the you are the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so now my focus and emphasis and primary business is the Becoming Kinetic community, which is a community for people like that, where we provide coaching on a business level. We provide personal development and mindset coaching as well. We provide accountability and community. We've got a mastermind portion of that as well, specifically for some people that have been in business a little bit longer. So that's the primary focus now.
What was the catalyst to wanting to build that community?
There were two big things. One was just the power of community that I experienced. There was an event that I went to a couple of years ago when I was in the midst of my real estate struggle, and I had very successfully flipped a bunch of houses. But then, because it was just the next thing, I started building the house flipping business, and I hated it, and it wasn't going well because I didn't like what I was doing, and I was in a bad spot. All of these things, and so I went to an event with a mastermind group that I was a part of, and because we were able to get below the surface and really deeply connect and resonate with one another, people were able to hear what wasn't being said as much as what was being said. And I saw the power of that community because when I came in talking about real estate and talking about the challenges that I had, what they heard after listening to me for a while and piecing together everything, what they heard was, why are you in real estate? How is this serving your goals? How is this serving the life that you want to build for your future, and the impact that you say that you want to have? And so I saw that power in my own life. And then when I got into coaching, kind of the final straw for me was I had a client that was he had nobody. He was getting into real estate. He did a lending deal. It was a really big deal. And he was on top of the world when he did the deal. And then he came back the next day and he was like, or not the next day, the next week. And he looked like someone beat his dog. And I'm like, dude, what happened? And he told everybody in his network. He told his friends, he told his family, he told his spouse, and nobody understood what he was doing. And so they all talked shit about it. They all told him that he was an idiot. They all told him he was going to lose his money. And it just beat the hell out of him. And he didn't have any support system besides me. And so I wanted to create a space for my clients as well and for other people to be able to find that support system that they need, because entrepreneurship is incredible. It's also incredibly challenging, and it can also be incredibly lonely if you don't have the right people around you. So I want to be able to provide the value to others that I've been able to experience in my own life.
You mentioned clients. So like you also said that you're like a business and mindset coach. Like what does that look like when someone wants to work with you and like how do you like vet to make sure like you have the right people?
Yeah, it's a lot of times the right people are the ones that are stuck. They know that they want something different. They're not sure how to make it happen, or they've been trying and it just hasn't been working. The biggest factor that I look for is a willingness to take action and a willingness to put in the work. There's all sorts of stuff that we can talk about and all sorts of mindset work that we can do, but if you're not willing to do the work, it doesn't really do a lot of good. So I basically have a 4-step model that it bounces between the steps, but the steps start with just revealing, which is basically dumping out the puzzle pieces and helping people figure out where they're at, what they want what they want, and kind of revealing all of their intentions, desires, habits, positive, negative traits, that type of thing. Then we start the process of redefining what they want. And so that's where we start getting into the idea of redefining success a little bit, figuring out if the goals that they have are actually their own or if they're adopted from family members or their industry or whatever else, kind of like I talked about before. And then we have a releasing phase, which is basically trying to break the limiting beliefs, trying to break the habits, trying to break the attachment to the past and trying to break the attachment to all of the other negative. And then the final component is becoming. And that's the process of helping them build the habits, helping them build themselves up to the point where they are stepping into their future selves that they've defined. And it's an iterative process. So we bounce back and forth a lot. It's not like it's a singular progression that we go through each step individually. A lot of times we get to step 3 and we're like, ooh, shit, that really just revealed a lot of stuff. So we need to go back there. We need to dump out more puzzle pieces on this one. So it's a continuous flow back and forth, but that's what the process ultimately looks like. And the end goal and the end result is that they have something very meaningful that they're working towards that is authentic to them, as opposed to just kind of the trait. Everybody wants freedom in some way, but most people don't know what the hell freedom means. Or if they achieve freedom, they don't know what they do with it. So they just backfill it with all the same shit they've been doing before that makes them miserable. So help them get clear on where they're going, what they want, why they want it, which then helps them build the action steps that are meaningful to make it happen.
You mentioned habits. What habits are most entrepreneurs missing that is kind of like that missing link between like where they are and success?
Um, from a habit standpoint, I think I would probably say space, creating space for themselves. Um, so many business owners and entrepreneurs are so much in, to go back to the analogy of rowing the boat, like so many entrepreneurs and business owners are just rowing the boat nonstop that they never zoom out to figure out if they're going the right direction. They never zoom out to ask if that's what they should be doing. And so they just get stuck in the rut. And I think that's also, not I think, I know that a lot of times that's what leads to burnout. Burnout comes from really what I found, 2 things. One is you don't have an important why that you're working towards. And so therefore everything that you're doing, when it starts to get really hard or when it starts to get repetitive and starts to get challenging, you don't really have a strong reason to push through. So you feel burnt out. The other reason is you have a why, but you've not zoomed out enough, and you've not given yourself enough space to remember why you're doing what you're doing. You're so busy in the day to day, in the grind, that you don't know why you're doing what you're doing anymore. So I think giving yourself space, um, if that means slowing down, for me, I take solo trips once a couple times a year, ideally now once a quarter. But even taking time for yourself in the morning, whether it's a morning routine, whether it's taking some time to go have some fun. And the car behind me is a Lego car, and I love playing with Legos. And so taking some time and space for yourself to be able to enjoy your life as opposed to just constantly grinding and pushing. I think from a habit standpoint, that's probably one of the biggest ones.
Do you have kids?
I do.
How old?
3.
All right. Um, I have a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. So how,
Okay.
like, what are you like teaching him, kind of about like, I guess life and like, I mean, it's kind of early, but like, are you trying to like teach him anything to like instill these types of values, into like, the life that he's creating?
Yeah, she's
And she,
I yes, I do. I try to be very intentional about it. I one of the one of the little things is um just trying to not limit. And I'm excited to see as she grows more and as we have more, like we're starting to have some cool conversations now. So as she starts to be able to do more of that, I'm excited for how we interact in that way to evolve and how I can share some of my insights and lessons to evolve. But like even when she was a I guess 1 or 2 years old and I'd be driving her to school, I would tell her about the things that were going on, and I would take like 5 minutes out of our drive and stop listening to Elsa, and I'd talk a little bit about like give her some type of lesson. And I she couldn't probably understand anything that I was saying, much less the meaning behind it. But I just wanted to get in that habit of kind of sharing and showing behind the scenes. And then also showing and instilling the fact that like we limit ourselves so much. We limit ourselves based on what we think is possible or what we hear we shouldn't do. And in reality, we're capable of so much. And so I have to catch myself doing that with her and trying to step back and say, like, I don't know better than you. I may know better than you in some cases, but I can't help you learn it unless I let you do it yourself. Um, and I don't want to limit you by my own restrictions, whether it's food, whether it's anything, like it, just the little shit. I think there's so many of those little things that pop up where I'm like, I am about to insert myself here. And now, because I would do that, I would insert some type of limitation, some type of belief, something into her ecosystem that doesn't need to be there. And I try to be a lot more mindful about that right now.
gotcha. Do you like when you have like a client, are you like kind of like coaching them about like how to be like a better parent as well as an entrepreneur as well? Like,
Yeah, my I was when I built the Becoming Kinetic community, I was reluctant to put anything about entrepreneurship in there because the lessons that I want to work with people on and that I help people with are universal life lessons in a lot of ways. They apply significantly to business ownership, and we'll talk a lot about business ownership and entrepreneurship, but the limitation that most people have is who they are, not the skill set that they have in business. And so when you're a more present father, when you're a more intentional husband or wife, when you're when you are operating and firing on all cylinders in your personal life, then your business life is going to grow as well. And so that's part of my push and part of why I want to continue growing the community and supporting people is because people think that like people see success as a trade-off, and people see that you can either have a successful business or you can have a successful family. And I think my own experience and what I've seen from others is that not only is it possible to have both of them together, but the best way for you to have a successful business is to also be a really good father, be a really good husband, be a really good partner and family person, and be a really good human being. Because in the rest of the business stuff, you can learn the skill sets in business, you can learn all of that stuff, but the authenticity, the quality of the human that you are, and the way that you raise your children and the way that you treat your family, that is ultimately the most important thing. And that's what everyone is gonna like. They can see through the facade of everything else if you aren't.
when when you're building this becoming kinetic community, what's your vision for it? Like where do you see it going in like the next like 5 or 10 years?
A couple of things. One is I run a local group as well called Charlotte Entrepreneurs, and that is you've been to Lena's, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So my goal is to have more of those pop up around the country and then use the Becoming Kinetic platform as the education and um, personal development and support behind all of those in-person events. So the long term that I see out of Becoming Kinetic is the group is there's two different tiers to it right now, and eventually there'll be more of them. One is I wanted this to be incredibly accessible. So right now, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but basically through the end of the year, the community is only $50 a month because I want people to be able to access it without having to pay, the $5,000 for a year that a lot of places are. So I want the base level of the community, excuse me, to grow massively and have thousands, if not tens of thousands of people as a part of it. And then we have elevated tiers. We have the elite mastermind that is specifically for people that have been in business longer. And we have more in-depth business conversations there and more in-depth types of personal development conversations and mastermind conversations there. And so creating more and more tiers at that level where each one is a little bit more exclusive with a little bit higher caliber business owner, a little bit higher caliber people, that everyone has a ladder that they can continue to aspire to level up to. And so then we can reach all different levels of people, and everyone always has another rung that they can climb, and they've got the support system that's able to help them out. So the short version of that is I want this to have 10,000 plus people in it over the next 5 or 10 years, and pop up some other local events, start doing some conferences and some other things as well, and have that elevated tier structure so that everybody has a way to plug in and get the most value out of what they need at the moment.
What platform are you building your community on?
I'm on Circle.
Okay. I don't think I've heard of that. I'll check it out. So what's really your why into wanting to build this community? Like, I kind of got like a surface level answer, but like at the end of the day, like what's going to keep you from like continuing to be passionate about it even when shit starts to hit the fan?
There's the reason that I got into coaching and now why I love the community building side of it is when you're sitting across the table from someone or when you're sitting on a Zoom call with someone and you see that look or you hear that aha or you hear that sigh or that oh shit, and that moment that just kind of unlocks something for someone. And when I'm coaching and helping people, I can do that and I see that happen. And it is probably one of the top three feelings in the world is when I unlock that growth. And to go a little bit deeper too, aside from just the personal joy that I feel from seeing that type of unlocking and transformation, on more of a social level, on more of a national and larger scale, I think a lot of the challenges that we have as a society right now are based on this kind of tribalism and this lack of understanding of one another. And at the end of the day, what was so cool about being out in Nashville is seeing the way that when you break it down to the core needs of people and the core value systems and belief systems in people, while all this other surface level shit is the stuff that gets a lot of the attention and makes people butt heads and dislike and hate one another. If we get down to the root, there's a lot of shit that we have in common. And when we can focus on the things that we have in common, we can make a really positive difference and we can come together and do things that we can't otherwise do. And I think by doing this with entrepreneurs, it's really cool with entrepreneurs because all of us have a level of influence that's often greater than non-business owners because we've got the employees, we've got the clients, we've got the marketing, we've got the people around it. Like we just always have a lot of influence. And when we can be intentional about that and we can build a place where we see each other from a different perspective, when we're able to see the other side of the coin and not just see our own narrow view, I think that can start to create some positive change, not just in individual businesses, but also in communities and in society overall. So that's a deeper intention behind all of the things that I do. But one of the things that my superpower I started to find is just in perspective and in looking at the other side and seeing why people believe what they believe. And sometimes it leads me to make excuses for people, but it leads me to seeing the good in people. And I think the more that we can see that perspective in others, the better we can make society overall.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's a lot of value and power to the group that you're building. Just from what I've heard, both in this conversation and what I've seen you building over the last few months. How do people find out more about it, and how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to joinbecomingkinetic.com. Or you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's the Patrick Menefee. Also, if you know the person that has just Patrick Menefee, let me know because I want it. But it's the Patrick Menefee, Menefee. You can find me also on LinkedIn or on Facebook or any of those as well. So I've been playing with Threads lately. That's been my last like 24 hours that I've been playing with a little bit. So
Nice.
that one's
I
been fun
haven't
too.
really gotten the hang of it. I've been posting it from like Instagram to Threads, but I think it's kind of almost like a Twitter or Next type of thing, and I've never gotten
Yeah.
into it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I appreciate your time, man. If there's anything I can do to help you out, let me know. And yeah, once again, thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
Yep, of course. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
All right, see you.